Happy Monday. You're listening to another episode of the Badass Podcast. I am your host, Sasha Davis. And today I want to tell you a story about failure. I feel like so many people are afraid to fail. I was one of them. I was always like, it has to be perfect. What if it's not perfect? Or what if I can't do it? And so I would actually convince myself not to do things because I was scared of failing them. But before I get into that story, I wanted to share with you, yesterday morning I had a meetup with a few of the women in the mastery program. And I just have to tell you how incredible it is to be around women and have these deep, meaningful conversations about, how life used to be and how it is now, and just to hold space for one another to show that we can do anything when we put our minds to it, and that life doesn't have to be hard. Like, you don't have to be stressed and overwhelmed and anxious, and you don't have to keep shoving the feelings down. You don't have to just keep grinding and hustling until you collapse because you're so freaking tired. And you don't have to push so hard that you push yourself into physical and mental exhaustion. And it was just so nice. It was super simple. We met up at a park in town, kind of a central location for all of us because none of us really live close to each other. And not everybody could make it because not everybody lives in the area. But for those who lived close enough, they were able to come. And we sat there and we talked about what life was a few months ago versus what it is now, and how we can start giving ourselves credit for how far we've really come. And then we did a couple of journal experiments, which were difficult for some and not for others. But it was just so nice to sit there and share our stories, and no judgment. Like, there was no judgment at all. It wasn't, you need to fix this, or you need to fix that, or you need to try this, or you need to do this. It was just, okay, all right. I see you. I hear you. I feel you. This is what works for me. And that was it. Oh, it was just incredible. So I had to share that with you guys because I have been really trying to build connection with women who have similar goals as me. And I had been kind of resisting it because I'm like, what if it doesn't work out? And the fear of failure. What if this happens and what if that happens? And I was like, you know what? Screw it. Worst case scenario, I don't do it again. But I loved it so much that for the people in my mastery program, I'm going to start doing even more for them. Which, if that interests you, send me an email, support@sashadavis.com. But let's dive into the story that I want to tell you. And I had started telling the women yesterday about this story. It was kind of funny because I have been around horses almost my entire life. Since I was, I'm just going to say like 5 or 6 years old, because I remember way back when my dad used to take me to the Diamond Ranch that was by our house when we lived in Minnesota, and we would go trail riding. And I just absolutely loved it. And then we moved to Iowa when I was, I think, 8 years old. And that's when I got my first horse. Ugh, he was beautiful, but he was such a turd. We went to an auction in town to get him. And we ended up naming him Money because he was so cheap. Or I don't remember, my mom said something about, oh, that's a lot of money. And my dad's like, it's just money. But I think we got him for like $200, you guys. And if you know anything about horses, like, that is dirt cheap. He was a yearling. He was a Palomino. And he was wild. Oh my gosh, you guys, this horse. Oh, I miss him. Bless his heart. I had him for a little over 20 years. But anyways, I digress. What I want to tell you is a story because I'm actually a certified therapeutic horseback riding instructor. And in order to be a therapeutic riding instructor, you have to pass certain tests. So I passed the lesson planning portion, like my ability to teach and speak and things like that. Like I passed that with flying colors. I have no problem teaching and talking. Like I just absolutely love that stuff. But I had to do a writing test. And you guys, I was like, oh, no big deal. I've been riding horses forever. I know everything. Well, let me tell you that as soon as you think that you know everything, you could not be more wrong. And in the back of my head, I kind of knew that, but I didn't know to what extent. I thought that, oh, it's no big deal. I've been riding for 20 years. I will pass this test. And so I start to practice, and I really got hung up on the posting trot. And for those of you who are not into horses and horseback riding and things like that, it's just a different type of trot. You know, Western riders typically do a sitting trot, and it's a more relaxed style of riding. But let's be honest, like I rode bareback my whole life. Like it was just a thing. Like we just throw a halter and a lead rope on a horse or some makeshift bridle and reins. Like it was never anything fancy. We would just jump on the horse and go, and we'd gravel travel. Or every now and then we would tack up and we'd go down to one of the parks that was close to us. I had a fairgrounds that was near, and we would ride down there and do some little events here and there. But I wasn't like a big competitor. I didn't do like shows. I didn't win any awards. I didn't really get into rodeo or anything like that. I just rode for fun and because I loved horses and I loved being around them. And I was self-taught in everything. Which just goes to show that you need somebody to teach you things that you don't know. So here I am wanting to become certified, and I rode one of the horses in front of our program director, and she's like, oh, you need to work on your trot. I was like, dang it. So I kept working on my posting trot, and I just couldn't get it. I kept getting like the wrong diagonal, and so then I had to overanalyze everything, and I think I bought like every book under the sun on how to do a posting trot. And I was like, I'm going to nail this test, you guys. And I was going down to Georgia for like 4 days to do this workshop and certification. And I had practiced, like I was riding all the time. Like I had been riding more than I have ever been riding because I was like, I'm going to pass this test. I'm going to do it. And to be honest, pretty much everything else. So like the posting trot and like the canter were the things that I needed to work on. I was pretty good at everything else, but it was especially the posting trot that I was really trying to work on. I don't know why. I just was like super weird about it. I kept picking up like the wrong lead or the wrong diagonal. And so anyways, I finally feel like I'm comfortable enough to like take this test. I go down to Georgia, and there's, probably 20 other people in this workshop. I was one of 2 people that rode Western. Everybody else there rode English. So that in itself was intimidating because I'm like, oh my God, all these English riders, like, I don't know what I'm doing. Like, why am I here? Who am I? You know, all of the stories that I tell myself. And this was 5 years ago. So I do the workshops. I pass everything. I do my lesson plan. I pass and all that stuff. And I am up for my writing test. And I start to panic. I am not on the first day. So the first day I get to watch everybody. A couple of people did terrible, like absolutely terrible. Like I watched them and I was like, oh my God. I'm like panicking for them. And then the rest of the people did it like perfect. They were perfect. And I think that was even more intimidating because I was like, oh my God, I can't ride like that. Like, I do not look like that. I look like, I look like a hillbilly on the back of a horse. Like, I don't know. I'm just so different than what like your average English rider is. So then the next day comes and I don't think I got any sleep. I made the mistake of drinking a whole bunch of coffee because I couldn't eat. So then the coffee and the caffeine got my nerves going even more. I'm sweating. I'm like pacing back and forth. And I was like the 3rd person to go that day. Oh my goodness, you guys. Oh my goodness. So they give me this horse. He was humongous. He was, I think he was a a warm blood or a saddlebred. He was just a big horse compared to what I was used to. So I'm like, oh my goodness. And they give me a saddle, a Western saddle. They only had 2 and neither one of them fit me. So I get up there and I do like a warm-up lap and I'm like, oh my gosh, this saddle is not going to work. This saddle is so uncomfortable. So then I jump off and I fix my stirrups, but it was just still too big. Like I was just, the saddle was just way too big for me. The stirrups were too long, even at the shortest that they were, and the seat was just too big for my butt. So I'm like, oh my gosh, okay, try not to stress about this saddle. And this horse had so much movement. So like the horses that I had been practicing on had pretty they were just really smooth. They had like a nice Western, what do they call it? A nice Western lope. And this horse was the exact opposite. He had so much movement and I just kept getting it wrong and getting it wrong and getting it wrong. And I knew I had it wrong. And so with this certification test, if you feel like you did not pass one of the skills, you could say it at the end, where like you park in front of the judges and say, hey, I don't think I did this right. Can I redo it? And they'll say yes if you did it wrong, like yes, you can redo it, or they'll say no, you're fine, which means you did it right. So after I did my first initial, I knew I had it wrong, you guys. The whole time I knew I had it wrong. And so then I tried to fix it and I couldn't, and I was like getting myself so worked up, and then I was like, I'm just gonna fail it, I'm gonna fail it. And so in my head I just kept saying, you're gonna fail, why even try, you're gonna fail, why even try. So what do you think happened? I failed. So I park in front of the judges and I say, can I redo my posting trot? And so they just nod yes. And I'm like, oh God, here I go again. I'm going to fail it again. I suck at a posting trot. I can't do this. And just talking myself out of it. And again, guess what happened? I failed. I knew I failed. And they can't even tell you your results right away. They don't tell you until that afternoon or the next day. They'll call you and say whether or not you passed. And I knew it, you guys. I knew it, that I failed, and I didn't know what I was going to do. I had to come back to Iowa and tell the riding center that I failed my posting trot. I had been riding horses for 20 years, and I failed a riding test. I failed a freaking riding test, and I have been riding horses since I can remember. Like, if that doesn't tell you something, I don't know what will. Like, there's always room for improvement, and even when you think you know everything, you can still fail. So I get the call and they're like, yeah, you did really good on your lesson planning and you really did good on your teaching and you did not pass your riding test. I was like, oh, you gotta be kidding me. And they're like, everything else was great, but I messed up on my posting trot every time. And then I would try to fix it and then I would mess it up again. And I don't know, I got in my head and I couldn't do it. It was because I kept telling myself I couldn't do it. So then I come back to Iowa and I tell the center and I was so bummed. I was like, you guys, I failed and I felt like I worked so hard. And then I was talking it out with them and they're like, well, how did you feel? And I was like, oh, I just felt like I was going to fail the whole time. And they're like, well, you kind of set yourself up for failure by having that kind of mindset. I'm like, oh my gosh, you're so right. Like I should have just breathed and not watched everybody and not got myself worked up. I should have just went first. I should have practiced English. Like there were so many things that I could have done better that I didn't. I just got in my own head and thought that, you know, I didn't need the work. And then when I got there and saw that I needed the work, I just got in my head again and said, oh, you're just going to fail. You're just going to fail. So what happened? I went to Georgia and I failed. But the cool thing about this certification is that I could actually redo the riding test without having to redo the workshop or the lesson planning. So then I get back here, you know, after I break the news to everybody, and I really was like, I'm going to get this. I'm going to nail it. Like, I need to practice until I get this right. And so I did. I started taking lessons from multiple people, trying to figure out what it is that I needed to work on, you know, with my posture, with my seat, with my confidence, with my horse, with my, just everything. Like, how can I be better? Like, I refused to accept that I was a failure. I was like, no, I didn't, this isn't failing. Like, I failed once, yes, but this is just a lesson to show me what I still need to work on. What can I improve on? And let me tell you, there's a whole lot that I can improve on. There's still a whole lot that I can improve on with my writing, with my parenting, with my business, with my life goals, with everything. Everything. Like, there's always room for improvement. You can always do more. And every time I fail, I just rephrase it like, oh, okay, that's not really failure because I'm going to keep trying. So I only fail when I stop trying. Okay, so let's rephrase that again. So I just found out how not to do something. Okay, so I'm not going to do that again. What can I do better next time? And you guys, I practiced and practiced and practiced the posting trot. I think it was 2 months I practiced the posting trot. And then I did my video and I sent in my video, and guess what? I passed. I passed. I knew I was going to pass that time too, because I had worked so hard. I had multiple videos recorded so that I could watch myself and see what exactly it was I was doing wrong. And I had to just like shut off my brain. I tend to overthink things and overanalyze things. And with horseback riding, you have to be really in tune with your horse and really in tune with your body. And so if you do the posting trot like correctly, you're not like looking down at the shoulder, you're able to feel it. Like, you're just able to feel it with your body, with your seat, and communicate with your horse, not by, your hands are looking down. Like, you're able to communicate with your seat, with your legs, with your body language in general. And so I had really worked hard on the things that I did not do right in the workshop so that I could make sure that I passed the next test. And I did. I changed my mindset. I made sure I showed up and did the work every day. I made sure that I stayed consistent with my horse, with my saddle, with everything. Everything that I had control over, I made sure that it was the way that it needed to be so that I could learn and so that I could grow. And not that I have control over every situation, because a horse has its own mind. Like, they're pretty much a person with 4 legs. Like, and you have to communicate with them, and they're a partner. Like, you can't just say, oh, you do this, horse, and expect them to listen. Like, they're not dogs. Like, it does not work that way. It's a partnership, and you have to work together. Not that I just point and yell at my dogs, but dogs are a lot easier to work with than horses sometimes. So the reason I'm telling you this story is because I am not perfect. I am so far from perfect, it's not even funny. But the cool thing is I can recognize that I'm not perfect, and I can take my failures and I can turn them into something positive. I can say, okay, well, this didn't work out for me. So how can I change to be better? What went wrong here that I have control over, that I can fix and adjust and, find the detour, find the lesson in this so that I can be better, and even when you sit there and you're like, well, I can do it all on my own. Well, I thought the same freaking thing. I was self-taught, and I thought, I don't need work on this. I'll just watch some videos. But it wasn't until that I really started to take lessons from other people that it started to click, because they could sit there and watch me as I'm riding and say, okay, now do this. Okay, now do this. Okay, did you feel this? Why was that right? Why was that wrong? Why was it this? And ask me questions and get me out of my own head, right? And get things from a different perspective. Like, the people who I went and took lessons from weren't self-taught. They took lessons from somebody else who took lessons from somebody else. And that's the beauty of mentorship and teaching and coaching and all of these things, is because we don't know everything and we can't do everything on our own. And when we start to recognize that we actually do need help, it's a beautiful thing. I get help all the time now. I mean, yes, I try to figure out things on my own. Like, I don't just not do anything for myself. I will try my damnedest to figure it out. And then once I get stuck, then I ask for help. But there's a lot of things that I can do on my own, but then there comes a point where you just feel kind of stuck. And you're like, I don't know where to go from here. I don't know where to go with my health, with my fitness, with my career, with my life, with my anxiety and overwhelm and all of these things that we're supposed to be doing all at the same time. Like, how do I manage? Well, just take a step back, breathe. And if you're feeling stuck, ask for help. That's what I did. And that has been the biggest game changer in my life. So just know that we all fail. We all fail. But you only really fail when you stop trying. So just get back up, keep pushing, keep going. You can do it. And just modify. Like, take a step back. What's not working? Okay, assess and move on. All right, I'm over here cheering for you. Whoop, whoop. Go get this Monday. All right, be a badass, ladies. Talk to you later.